Get to the point. That's right. This week's book is Get to the Point, Sharpen Your Message, and Make Your Words Matter by Joel Schwartzberg. And let me tell you, straight out, it was a great book. A great book. Starting with, the Audible was less than 2 hours. You know why? Because the author got to the point. How great is that? This book is packed with great techniques, strategy, right? Tools to get to the point. And it's a short book. It was so good. I probably got more out of this book than I've gotten out of most of the books I've read in the last year. And I thoroughly enjoyed the book. So much so that I listened to it twice this week. Right? It was brief enough and it was impactful enough. I listened to it the first time, then I listened to it the second time, and then you know what? I read through the book to try to make notes. And what I hope is that some of the key learnings in this book you'll see represented in my future presentations, because I learned a whole bunch of things that I'm doing wrong, including not getting to the point in the first 15 seconds. But let's just talk about the book for a little bit. First, I'm going to give you a peek. Here's what the book looks like. You can see it right here. Get to the point. Pretty simple. Author Joel Schwartzberg. You know, he's a strategic communications trainer and a public speaking coach. He's known for helping large companies, professionals, keynote speakers, sharpen their messages and communicate with clarity. He won the National Public Speaking Championship in 1990. He's been a contributor to the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, and Toastmasters International. He's a recognized speaker and coach. He's worked for major organizations like the American Express, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and the American Jewish Communities. The book was published in 2017. It has all sorts of accolades and recognition. It's available on Kindle, Audible, hard copy, soft copy. It's really, really a good book. Now, the overall theme of the book is, it's communication without clear, defendable point. It's ineffective and forgettable. You know, and so the author Joel argues that most people mistakenly share information, anecdotes, and themes, but fail to take a position, make a connection, or deliver true value. His goal is to help readers identify, sharpen, and deliver their point with clarity and conviction, which is, of course, super important for you and I, right? And if you're not making a strong point, you're not persuading, you're just talking. I love that. There's only like 10, 11, if you count the ending, there's 11 short chapters, right? And he starts the book in an introduction. He talks about when he gave a personal book report. He was like 14, and he went and analyzed his book report, and he said, look, I made a huge mistake, a mistake that everyone makes when I made this book report, is that I shared information without making a point. And you know, and that's what I do a lot in these videos. I share information without making a clear point, and that's what I hope to change in the future. Hopefully, when you see me reboot, you'll see me use this formula, and it will start with a really clear point. And so he goes in this introduction. Many presenters confuse a point with a topic. See, a clear point is necessary to influence and impact. And then, of course, if you're having a point, you know, reduces your anxiety and rambling. It keeps you on point. You can't be on point if you don't have a point. If you don't have a point, it's pointless. Makes sense, right? So chapter 1 is the big flaw. The big flaw: without a point, speakers ramble, audiences disengage, and opportunities are lost. See, because a point is not a theme or a topic. Success depends solely on whether the audience receives your point. That's the whole point. It's and he's going to talk about this in another chapter. Transferring your point from your head to your audience's head, right? Every communication, from emails to presentation, we're going to talk about that in the last chapter, needs a point. Chapter 2 is know your point. So chapter 1 is big flaw. Chapter 2 is know your point, right? And this is a great chapter. I've listened to it a couple times. I've read through it. And he introduces the 3 tests to define a strong point. And I'm gonna give you the formula now, but he gives so many examples in this chapter about how to build a point, right? And it's really like 3 stages on how to build your point. But the tests are: 1, quote, I believe that test, right? I believe that. And so your point should complete this phrase meaningfully. So when you're making a point, what you're really saying is, I believe that. And then that's the beginning of your point. Now, you don't have to use the words I believe that. The I believe that is the test, but that's function one. You have to state your point in that I believe that, and whatever comes next is your point, right? And then there's the so what test. And the so what test, this is really interesting. So you make your point, I believe that whatever it is, and he has a handful of examples in this chapter. He has tons of examples of this all throughout the book. It's such a good book, right? So you state your point, here's my point, but then the so what test is that an obvious truism? Like, I believe that, oxygen is critical for humans, existence. Well, yeah, duh. No kidding. That's a truism. So what? Of course it is. So you don't want to make points that are obvious. Those are worthless points, right? And then the last point, so if you need, I believe that, and then you have the so what, right? The next is why. Why? And then what this is where you sharpen your point, right? I believe that XYZ because this, and that's the why. And in that, he really goes through this, so it's really great. He creates this word called badjectives. Like, remove all your meaningless adjectives, like all the filler words, just bang, concise. And this is an easy chapter to listen to. This is a great book. This is one of the better chapters of the book. Chapter 3, make your point, right? Communicators often focus too much on being likable or entertaining, but the real job is delivering the point. Think of yourself as a messenger, not a performer. Start strong, convey your point within the first 15 seconds, and avoid fillers, especially so. Never start a point with the word so, right? There's a bunch of examples, and when he says it, you go, yeah, I do that sometimes. I probably need to cut that out, right? Chapter 4, sell your point. This was a very interesting chapter. Not what you would think, not what I would think. And here's what the point of the chapter is. Effective speakers sell their points. They don't just describe or explain. They sell the point, right? And what that starts with, avoid book report presentations where you just spread information. You're not selling it, right? Use phrases like I propose or I recommend or I suggest, right? Those are power phrases, right? And a sole point conveys its urgency, relevance, and value, right? Because remember, the purpose is to convey a point from your head to your audience's head, whether that's one person or audience, whoever that is, and that they'll only accept the point or only land with them if you sell it to them. So you must sell your point. Chapter 5 is tell your point. That means effective communication matches your audience's needs. He talks about how to match what your audience needs. Chapter 6 is stay on point. This was a very good chapter, a very good chapter. And he talks about how communications can easily drift. Staying disciplined is critical. And in that, he goes, look, re-anchor your message by repeating your point. If you wander off and you're off point, just re-anchor by saying the point is and restate your point. And then you can also use on-ramps back to your point by using transitions like, here's the thing, right? And here's the thing. I know Rene Rodriguez in his Amplify gives you techniques that says, the reason why I bring this up, the reason why I'm saying this are on-ramps back onto your point. So he uses, here's the thing. And then resist getting dragged into irrelevant debates, right? Like, make your point. Somebody makes a counterpoint, acknowledge it, but then go back to my point, right? Go back to your point. So stay on point. Chapter 7, strengthen your point, right? Here's where he talks about delivery techniques make a huge difference. This is really crazy. I talked about this in a couple chapters. Number one technique to make a stronger point, to be a better presenter, volume. I'm really bad at volume. If you've heard me speak, as some of you have, a lot of times I'm too quiet, right? I'm not strong enough. And volume is critical to strengthen your point. Second technique, pause. And he explains why pauses are important, why they're important to the speaker and why they're important to the audience. He uses all sorts of ways that you can use them for power to strengthen your point. Really good techniques. By the way, not dissimilar to last week's book, which was your next conversation, talked a lot about pauses. The third technique in this book for strengthening your point was power periods. And that is end each sentence with a period. And what you want to avoid is downward inflection. Or what you want is downward inflection and avoid uptalk, right? And he gives a couple examples, but end with a period. Don't end with a question mark, right? Avoid uptalk. use downward inflection. And that was I know that sounds really simple, but it was really simple in the book, but you get great examples of it. Chapter 8 is complete your point. A strong finishes cements the message. So reiterate your main point before closing, just like you learned in high school in writing a paper with a thesis and then your final closing statement, right? Reiterate your main point. Avoid diluting your end with rushed transitions to a question and answer or to other topics, right? So like if you're giving a keynote and you have somebody giving a keynote behind you, don't make your final point. And so, so humans need oxygen. Thank you. Now I want to welcome Sally to the stage. You got to let your point land and marinate for a little bit before moving forward. And what that's called is stick the landing. Let it resonate, let it marinate, let it live, right? Chapter 9, which I also really liked, is 5 enemies of your point, common traps that weaken communication. Number 1, overuse of and. And what that really means is split ends. Oh, like you make your point and then you make another point and then you make another point. Just make a single point. A single point is what you're trying to do, right? Don't try to split ends by adding points. Of course, avoid crutch words like and ah and so. Next part was really, really interesting. Don't issue unnecessary apologies. And by the way, last week, Jefferson brought that up in your next conversation. Don't apologize. Don't give worthless apologies. Here, in this book, Joel says, don't give unnecessary apologies. Next, which if anybody's seen me speak, I know a lot of you have, speaking too fast. Don't speak too fast. I speak really fast. Now, speaking fast not only is typically shows nervousness or insecurity, anxiety, right? But speaking slow removes those things, not only the impression of it, but those feelings in the speaker. And the way you slow down speaking fast, speaking louder, because speaking louder takes more oxygen. You need to breathe more. It forces pauses. Pauses also force you to slow down. So speaking louder and using pauses slows you down. And then the last thing, of course, the enemy of your point, is lack of a clear, decisive conclusion, not sticking the landing. Chapter 10, really simple, train others to make points. This is where he transitions to the book about talking about how you can be a better speaker, how you can be a better communicator, to how you can make people around you better communicators. Chapter 10 is train others to make points. That's just how you help other people become better communicators. And then chapter 11 gets cases in point. And there's a few things in cases in point. Here he lists a whole bunch of good points, good speakers, good presentations. He refers you to their YouTube videos if you wanted to see them. But he also, in this last chapter, he goes into corporate communications and communications in different environments, right? And I'll just mention a few of them. He had 7 in total. I'm going to mention a few of them. One, he talked about how to create notes for your presentations or for your keynotes or for your PowerPoints or for your meetings. And he's like, look, prepare bullet points, not full scripts. Practice speaking from the notes, not reading them. Your smart notes should be jumping off points, and they should be structured, but you shouldn't be tethered to them. And he talks, and then the PowerPoint best practices. He goes, look, there's books written about PowerPoints. I'm not gonna. You can go read those books, but just a few thoughts on how to make a point in a PowerPoint is when each slide must serve the point. There's no filler slides. Right. And he actually suggested, look, the PowerPoint should support the speaker. The speaker shouldn't be subordinate to the PowerPoint. The speaker is the one with the power, the one making the point. And so you might use images, you might use simple statements, but don't let the PowerPoint drive the presentation. He said, follow the 5x5 rule. If you've seen my PowerPoints, they're way too busy. I got to adopt this. One of the things I have to adopt. Use no more than 5 words per line and use no more than 5 lines per slide. Right? Don't put a whole, I was attending the SIC 2025 SIC conference this morning, and the last speaker, Peter Bookvar, literally had slides with 200 words on it, like it was a giant page or paragraph. That's completely ineffective. I'm guilty of that. Instead, follow the 5x5 rules. No more than 5 words per line, no more than 5 lines per slide. No full sentences, period. Use keywords and visuals to prompt you to talk, not read, and then design your PowerPoints for clarity. Clean fonts, high contrast, minimal clutter. He said in this section on email best practices, put your main point either in the subject line or the first line of the email. In that, he said, look, if you have a long email string that's been going back and forth with a lot of people, and the content of that email has changed over the string, change your subject line. Don't be afraid to change it to mean more what it's talking about today than what it was previously, right? Use bullet points when you can in emails, and end all emails with a call to action, right? And avoid rambling introductions and lengthy buildups. Just get to the point, use bullet points, have a call to action. And then he also has some best practices for how to have a staff meeting, which includes come prepared with preformed points, speak loudly and confidently, use pauses, and then whenever possible, recommend actions. So those are the 10 chapters. You know what? I'm going to share, here's a few good notable quotes for the book. First one, too many people making speeches, not enough people making points. I love that. Quit making speeches, start making points. Second, a point is a contention you can oppose, argue, defend, illustrate, and prove. Third, if you aren't selling an idea, you're failing to provide value. 4, effective communication hinges on one job and one job only, moving your point from your head to your audience's head. And the fifth quote I'm going to use is, whatever you gain by squeezing in multiple ideas, you lose twice over by diluting the impact of each. Stick to one point. Don't do split ends. A couple just key points, and final reminders. Making a point is not optional. It's your duty. A strong, clear point moves audiences, advances careers, and turns ideas into action. All right, going on now. Some other key points. Define your point. A true point is a statement that you can propose, argue, defend, illustrate, and prove. It's not a topic, title, or theme. Test your point. Use the I believe that and the so what and why test to ensure your messages are clear, specific, and valuable. Next, sell your point. Good ideas must be actively sold, not merely shared. Selling means presenting your point with purpose and urgency. Tell your point to the audience. Stay on point. Use transitions and disciplined language to avoid rambling or being pulled into side discussions. Strengthen your delivery, volume, pauses, body language, and removing barriers like podiums can dramatically increase the impact of your point. By the way, removing barriers, the fewer things between you and your audience, whether you're doing it virtually or you're doing it live, the fewer barriers between you, the more likely your point's going to be transferred from your head to their head. Conquer common pitfalls, avoid split ends, multiple points, crutch words, apologizing, speaking too quickly, and losing focus. And then, of course, train others. So that's the book. Get to the point. It was a terrific book. It's a very short read if you get it. It's less than 2 hours on the Audible. It's inexpensive. I think it was only like $11 on Audible or something. This is a book I definitely think almost anybody and everyone can benefit it. I highly recommend it. Get the book. I hope you enjoyed today's book review. I know I appreciate you guys giving me a few minutes of your time. Track me on my socials. With that, have a great day. Thanks so much.